Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. Thank you for staying with us. It's time now for the week that was. Let's take a look at the top stories that made headlines around the globe this week. Starting with President Bola Tinubu's decision to relocate critical departments of the Central Bank of Nigeria, as well as the headquarters of the Federal Airports Authority of Nigeria to Lagos. Now, this has clearly not gone down well with a growing number of stakeholders. On Tuesday this week, the chairman of the Senate Committee on the Army, Senator Ali Ndume, warned the president of what he called political consequences of his actions. The senator maintained that Tinubu was being misled by a cartel of Lagos boys who he says do not know how Nigeria works and would not be able to help the president when the repercussions ensues. Now it's time for, first of all, I have to say welcome back. We missed you last week.
Thank you.
But to go straight into this news story that broke during the week, anytime topics like this come up, it almost feels like a low point because there's so many other things that we could be talking about, but here we are. Now, some of these concerns have been brought forward, by the senator and even, some northern elders. And there is a certain level of legitimacy in the terms of nation building because of the rapid succession of the announcements. We do know that there was an announcement for CBN, there was an announcement for FAAN as well. Especially seeing as we are still in a fragile place coming from the 2023 elections. Now, the argument is that this particular move was done to enhance the productivity of CBN and of FAAN. You're bringing them to Lagos, and the reason being that it was too congested in FCT. But let's not forget our history. That the reason why Lagos is no longer the capital of Nigeria was because of this supposed congestion, and that was why it was moved to FCT at the time because. The Federal Capital or Territory, Abuja, was the center of Nigeria. Now, yes, there's this push for productivity, but I think we also need to look at the flip end of this argument, which is why Lagos? Could it have been taken anywhere else? And I saw online, and after doing a bit of research, that in fact. The CBN does have a 14-story building, CBN does have a 14-story building in Marina that is not being adequately used. That's where the headquarters, is going to remain in Abuja, and that the bank supervision and only the bank supervision and examination departments have been moved. That the Abuja office is too congested. Before we get too carried away with all of this and saying, there's Lagos boys, there's a cartel, there's all of these things. We need to really understand if this in itself is going to add to national unity. What is it doing for us? And also, just to, before I pass on the baton to you, I think it's also very important to know that there's a certain sensitivity to our geopolitics. It seems as if there are certain regions that come out to complain or argue when certain decisions are made, and we need to be very careful that this does not become a thing about tribe or a thing about religion. It needs to be about what the productivity is and the people who are populating these new offices. If the CBN doesn't or FAAN doesn't have the right staff or the right people who are pushing these newly introduced policies or the policies that already exist, then this argument, in my opinion, should not be the focus of this conversation. I'm just going to leave it there.
All right, that's got a long one, yeah. But it's okay. I mean, I agree that we shouldn't waste so much time on this sort of topic, but I don't think that it's a low topic, right? I mean, I haven't raised it, especially from people like Senator Ndume and from bodies like the Arewa Consultative Forum. Of course, it becomes necessary for the media to speak about it, for people of thought, to react to it. And my reaction basically, falls in line with with what most Nigerians have been saying, particularly from somebody like the former Emir of Kano, who's of course the former CBN governor, Lamido Sanusi, Lamido, to say that this isn't about tribe. It shouldn't even come up for the sort of debate that vested in Abuja interest. are trying to make it look like. CBN has always had an imposing building in Lagos. Everybody knows it. That's where most of the people moved before they went to Abuja. If it has become necessary to relocate some of the staff, just 2 or so departments back to Lagos, I don't see how that constitutes a big deal. If people like Ndume, and we're being told that it's for special personal reasons, and if you've got children of God people working in the CBN who do not want to come to Lagos, the same way that you get them in there, get them into other departments where they can stay in Abuja, it will become a different argument as to how they got there in the first place. And let those who are ready to work, and are ready to come to Lagos, do the thing. The thing for FAAN is very straightforward. This is where it happens as far as FAAN is concerned. The headquarters has always been in Lagos.
Yes.
Why former Minister Hedi Serika decided to move it to Abuja, we do not know. But the same power that he thought that he had is what Festus Keyamo, the current Minister of Aviation, has to say that ab initio, it has to say. It's logical, and we shouldn't allow people to now threaten the federation, threaten the president, threaten everybody, and labeling some people, Lagos boys, misadvising governor. Who are the Katsina boys at some point? Misadvising maybe, the former president. Who are the northern boys? I mean, my point specifically is that it is within the powers of these federal agencies to decide where departments and units under them should operate from. Yes. And if the minister says that FAAN has always been in Lagos, let it return to Lagos. I think that people like Ndume and Arewa Consultative Forum should realize that Abuja is not the north. It is not part of the north. It is the federal capital territory of Nigeria.
It doesn't belong to any region.
It doesn't belong to
I think, just like what you're saying, just what Sanusi said is that it's an eminently sensible move. They have a bigger office building in Lagos than they do in Abuja. Yeah. They said the building in Abuja was created for 3,000 people. Now they have 4,000 people over there. Like they're choked up. Yeah. And we have to be very sensible. I believe that Ndume is actually stepping out of his role as a legislator and a senator by meddling in this matter. I think he's misrepresenting it. He's changing the conversation. The conversation is not about Lagos is not the capital. Or Lagos boys. That is, honestly, it's very demeaning. There is well within the rights of the CBN governor to say that this office, he's not even moving the whole office. He's moving units within his organization. And when the former minister said he gave a 42-day notice to his staff to pack up their headquarters from Lagos and move it to Abuja, that was just 3 years ago. FAAN has only been in Abuja for 3 years. It has never been. They have it's not like, and people are talking about cost. They have a building here. People are talking about logistics. They have members of their team who operate out of Lagos.
They even have staff quarters here.
They have staff quarters here. So when the conversation is being modeled by things that are absolutely ridiculous, and I understand that, I do think that this shows the president also that when certain things are being happened, because it's an internal memo that was leaked, right? So this also shows the presidency that they have to be sensitive to certain things, but also they should not be held to ransom. It is well within their powers. The CBN governor is well within the powers of the Minister of Aviation. And also, when Ndume was speaking, he said, so does that mean we should move NNPC to the And I was like, you might be making a good point there. Why not? When we talk about restructuring or devolution of powers I was like, oh, you say this and you say it like it's a bad thing. You're not threatening me.
It's not about
what you are doing is actually, I'm like, you know what? That's a great point you're making, and that's a great idea. So all this, I feel like it's much ado about nothing. The conversation has been kidnapped, honestly. And I think it's a lesson for the media team of the presidency. There is no reason a senator should come out and say the Lagos boys are misrepresenting.
I mean, what said that this way? There are many countries of the world where the capital cities are not the commercial or financial, centers. Even in Africa, in Cote d'Ivoire, in different places.
Even South Africa
absolutely,
has,
even South Africa.
Within,
in Morocco, I mean, people should wake up, to the idea that it doesn't start and end with you.
Definitely.
Well, next story now. A federal high court sitting in Abuja has voided the passage of the Rivers State 2024 budget by 4 members of the State House of Assembly. Arise correspondent Godfrey Eshimoge reports that this may spark a fresh controversy as the judgment is in conflict with another one by a court of coordinate jurisdiction on the membership of the state legislature.
A High Court judge, James Omotosho, ordered the governor of the state, Sim Fubara, to therefore present the budget to the legally constituted House of Assembly under Speaker Martin Amawule. The court also restrained the Rivers State governor from going ahead with the demolition of the State Assembly complex while ordering the Inspector General of Police to provide security to the Speaker and other legislators in the Rivers State Assembly. It barred the National Assembly from taking over the functions of the Rivers State Assembly or accepting to treat any request from Governor Fubara to do so. Governor Fubara was also ordered to release all monies standing in the credit of the House of Assembly to Martin Amawule, who the court now deems as the lawful Speaker of the Rivers State Assembly. This decision is in sharp contrast to that of a High Court sitting in Port Harcourt, which had declared former Speaker and now former member of the State Assembly in charge after declaring vacant the seats of the 25 defecting members.
The court has restated the law as to the separation of powers of the various organs of government and trying to say in clear terms that nobody should interfere with the function of the other or try to be dictatorial in their approach to doing things in government. So that is the position of the law. So for today, there is judgment for the plaintiff, the Rivers State House of Assembly, led by Right Honorable Martin Amewule, who the court equally confirmed is the validly nominated and substantive Speaker of the said House of Assembly, and not Right Honorable Edison Ehie, as he has held or claimed to be. So that is the position.
Quite crucially, in Monday's judgment, the High Court judge says Edison Ehie is no longer a party to the suit, having resigned his membership of the State Assembly, ending any likelihood of there being any form of confusion as regards who is the rightful Speaker. Godfrey Eshamoge, Arise News.
At a temporary chair.
Well, we have 2 judgments coming out about this reverse case. We spoke about this last year, and I think it was about the 14th of December last year, when Sim Fubara passed that budget in a very scanty room.
Only 5 lawmakers.
So, I feel like we saw this coming, and there's so many issues with this. First of all, you have 2 different judgments coming out of Abuja. One saying he should represent the budget, and another one nullifying the 800 billion naira budget that he previously passed. At the end of the day, it's important and it's good that we see that our laws and our judge, that arm of government, can put the executive in check. However, when so many things are being legislated, the people of Rivers State are the ones who are paying, because right now it seems as though they are in limbo.
Yeah.
And we also spoke then also about the history of our laws, why they said that they could move, that the building matters or the building doesn't matter because of what happened in Ibadan all those years ago.
Yeah.
So there's so many things that are being legislated on here. What's the valid constitution of the State House of Assembly? What is actually valid in terms of who is the Speaker of the House of Assembly? Who was actually on seat? Was that 1/3 rule? Is it 10 people who had to be there? Is it that the rest of them had abdicated their seats because they said at that point in time they were saying that if they moved to the APC, then they were no longer legislators because the law says that you have to, the mandate belongs to the party and not to the person.
Yeah.
So there's so many matters, legal matters here, but at the end of the day, it's what is proper and what is also important for the people of Rivers State. And I think right now there is a little bit of confusion.
Yes.
I would say, for me, I think there's a little bit of confusion with the judgments.
Absolutely, it's confusing. Today is the 27th day of January. By Monday, that will be the 29th day. Ideally, a budget that was passed in December will be activated by the end of the first week in January, which therefore means that it is possible that the Rivers State government has started spending money that was already appropriated and passed by only 4 or 5, people. Now that the court is saying, even though it's conflicting, saying that no, the budget was not properly passed and that it has to go back since he has resigned and is no longer a party to the suit. It poses a dilemma, not just to the government, but to the people of Rivers State, who ought to be the direct beneficiaries of the appropriation. And how Governor Fubara handles this will be instructive. And I think that I see that he's trying to comply with what is signed in Abuja to get the state going. The commissioners have been reassigned. Things seems to be moving politically. It's been validated by the Supreme Court. But then how you spend money is a totally different ball game. And I think that is either he appeals the judgment or he complies. If you comply, it means that you will have, in 3 weeks or more, you will have spent money illegally. And that's quite dangerous. Definitely,
because any expenditure that is outside of that budget, of course, is unlawful. But just to, you've already touched on very salient points, but I think what really stood out for me, especially in following your conversation at Isuwa, is, the separation of powers, because we did see Justice Omotosho talk about warning Fubara not to exceed his powers. Fine, there was a peace pact that happened towards the end of last year. And this judgment, even though it's confusing, a lot of people are saying that this judgment in itself is just a legitimization of the conversation that was already had. And when you look at the fact that even the way the budget was horridly passed in that room with only 5 lawmakers and 27 being absent, there is a certain, let's not forget that in itself is as a governor, you've promised the people of Rivers State that you are going to, be the chief security officer and make sure that you take care of them first. So that move in itself was a bit wearisome, because were they really able to look at that budget through and through before it was passed, or was it just something that was that needed to be done immediately just to get through that time? So at this point, like you've said, it's we're going to be watching to see if Governor Fubara is going to appeal it, or if he's going to take Justice Omotosho's judgment for it and go back to the drawing board and basically work on that budget afresh. But what's mostly important is that the people of Rivers State are waiting now with outstretched arms, waiting for their the government to do what is needful for Rivers State to thrive. Now let's move on now to our next story. The federal government has developed a set of new guidelines aimed at shaping the ways Nigerians should comport themselves home and abroad. The Minister of Information and National Orientation, Mohammed Idris, said the document contains 7 core premises by the Nigerian state to citizens and same number of commitments by citizens to the country. Arise correspondent Omar Bazoaye tells us more.
Worried about the unity of the country, the Nigerian government has come up with a new social contract between it and its citizens. It calls it the National Values Charter, a code of conduct it hopes to shape the attitude and commitment of Nigerians home and abroad towards their country. The Minister of Information and National Orientation, Mohammed Idris, disclosed this in Abuja while receiving the blueprint of the National Values Charter.
How can we correct these abnormalities and chart a new path that will lead us to the great heights that we truly belong to? How do we forge national cohesion and unity from our differences? How do we build a reputational capital out of our country, at home and abroad? How do we ensure that the right behaviors and attitudes are the ones that are celebrated? How do we give the younger generation the hope and conviction that the future will be better than yesterday and today?
But more importantly, the National Value Charter is to convert many of Nigeria's fault lines of religion, region, and ethnicity into positive use for a strong and virile country.
While there is nothing wrong in recognizing these differences, we must not allow them to rob us of a strong sense of appreciation of our collective destiny. our differences and diversity should be seen as strengths rather than weaknesses.
The government admits that the absence of such guidelines in the past is part of the reason why a lot of citizens have become disenchanted with the country, forcing many of its best brains to self-exile in search of greener pastures. The new social contract is an improvement on previous public campaigns on national values, but this time around, the government wants the younger generation to take ownership of the project.
The value charter issue, as we know as Nigerians, is a critical component of any sustainable development in the country. And I think the minister is right in focusing on that, because no matter the level of infrastructural development and sustainable development, it has to be premised on some foundation of our moral values.
The new National Values Charter is expected to be launched by President Bola Tinubu soon. Omo Bazwai, Rise News.
Well, there you have it, Mohammed Idris, Nigeria's Minister of Information and National Orientation, announcing the framework for a new national values charter. I mean, this MVC seeks to create a national culture that represents the shared destiny and to identify and record fundamental principles that will govern all Nigerians, irrespective of their racial, religious, social, or economic backgrounds, which is a fantastic idea when you think about it. When you look at it, you know, you watch that VT, fantastic. But my worry is, how do you set up a national values charter for people that, you know, are still looking for how to get 1 meal a day? People that, you know, we have 100 million plus people are now in poverty. People don't have jobs. There's insecurity in the land. It just feels like there's so many things that are on top of the priority list. And even though this is a good thing, maybe having a social contract with Nigerians at this time may not necessarily be top of that priority list for me. I think that's what I have to say about this particular project.
Well, I mean, it's nice to see our Minister of Information. I don't think I've heard a lot from him before this. It's a bright eye. You know, I love anything that supports unity, that supports pride in our country, that supports us having better values, because a lot of times we've seen in our politics, in our daily lives, there is a lot of insecurity, there's a lot of tribal tension. Now we're having a resurgence of, I want to say, religious tension, especially like on the internet. So anything that is serving to try and foster unity in Nigeria, foster unity amongst its people, I think is a very great idea. The only issue is that, you know, I would like to see what it is. I would like to see how they plan to implement this. I'd like to see the funds that are going through this, because we have a whole committee. We have a chair of the committee. Yeah. There's a whole issue. I personally have an issue with the ceremony. You know, it's too much. I honestly think that there needs to be a pulse. Like, you need to understand the pulse of the nation that you're governing. And so when you're doing these things, all this ceremony, all the funds and all these things that are going towards it sometimes feels unnecessary. But I do think it's a great idea. And I definitely want to always encourage people within their own powers. You know, this is what the minister who's in charge of national orientation should be doing. He cannot do anything about insecurity, so let him do his own part. So, absolutely. So, you know, he's doing his own part, regardless of what's going on in the country. He's trying to do his own part. So
it is within the purview of the ministry to do this. It's basically a new campaign from the Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu's government. How much of it the president will key into is what we are waiting for. This is the initiative of the National Orientation Agency, headed by a brilliant journalist, Lanre Issa Nilu, who, of course, has the information minister as a supervising minister. And so it's the project of that ministry. I think the key word there is that it's an improvement on previous campaigns. And you know that we have had some brilliant campaigns, particularly under Olusegun Obasanjo administration. And I recall and when Dora Akunyili was the Minister of Information, that was when Nigeria rebranded and had the Good People, Great Nation campaign, which was a social contract with the people about loving your country, about owning the narrative about your country, about saying that, yes, even if we are reluctant to make the claims about being the giant of Africa because of the issues that we were tackling, but that we could say that we're good people. And I believe that we're good people and that we're a great nation. We'll wait to see what, between Larry Isaonilu and the Honorable Minister, what they have come up in terms of the itemization, 7 of them, of this new social contract. I hope that it will fly. If it does, I hope that it will make an impact and that Nigerians will key into it. It will have to be better than what has been done before. Not by you just saying it, but by what people will see. Do we need a new vibe? I suppose so. But then should that vibe come from a new advertising, slogan? We will wait and see what they have got. But of course, we shouldn't deny them of their statutory responsibility to say that, National Orientation Agency, galvanize Nigerians, let's see what's going on. But of course, I hope that there won't be confusion or overlapping of duties. Because as you know, the old Ministry of Information has been split into 3. One of the derivatives of the Ministry of Art, Culture, and Creative Economy, also has a Director General, Executive Secretary, I believe is the proper designation, for National Institute for Cultural Orientation. Another brilliant gentleman, Otumba Abiodun Ajiboye, who's in charge there, who's also working in a way towards a similar direction in terms of cultural orientation for Nigerians. And I see that he has started well, moving with UNESCO and things like that. I hope that there won't be conflict. Because if you recall, the Stephen report, we shouldn't be having multiplicity of agencies doing the same thing.
Doing the exact same thing. So while we commend what the Ministry of Information is doing, we hope that the Ministry of Creative Economy will not say, oh, is that not part of our own job too? Because they are also having their own program which they launched about selling Nigeria to the world. And they have also come up with the parts of Nigeria that they want to sell to the world. They're even taking it internationally. And in selling Nigeria to the world, as Minister Anatu Musawa tried to do, at Davos the other time, of course, there were little talks about, shouldn't that be the job of the Minister of Tourism, for example, who should be talking about Destination Nigeria while you are dealing with content. But again, people said that they wanted different ministries for this and for that. Now you have the ministries, everybody's have to be doing the same thing. I really want to meet those people who said they needed different ministries, because for me, we'll see how it goes. I hope that the goals of the Orosoye report, will not have been, totally dead and buried. But let's see. All right, then, that's all that we have on the week that was.